How has that all worked out? Have you enjoyed that experience?
Well, it's been a learning experience,
I'll
to
bet.
say the least. I went in with the opportunity thinking that I was going to be able to actually change educational policy, that I was going to get in there and I was going to represent the student body and solve some issues. There's so many issues with our education system, here in the state of Maine in particular, and I felt that this was a great opportunity for students to voice their opinions. The problem is I'm leaving with the opportunity really disappointed and discouraged in our political system, and as a young person, that's not what I want to hear. I don't want to hear that here's this opportunity for students to get involved and then they're going to take it away from us by not only not giving us a right to vote, but taking away our voice, which was the only thing that we had. Because I'm not going to say it's just a photo op, but it's definitely been an eye-opening experience to see the manipulation and the power plays that go on in Augusta. So I've advocated a number of issues, though, and I really am proud of some of the things that I've talked about, including stronger civic engagement curriculum. I think it's critically important that we get our young people civically engaged. And I'll give you a prime example of why that's important. This past year, as a senior, I took a political science course at Thornton Academy. It was the first time in my 12 years of public education that we actually went in depth in our government and how our political system operates. And the issue there was it was a voluntary course, and about only 40 students out of a class of 350 took the course. So what's going to happen to those 300 plus students that are not going to have that same background in our government, in our political system, than those 40 students? What's going to happen to them? They're going to turn that magic number of 18 when they're given that responsibility to vote, and they're not going to have a clue. And that's the bread and butter of our democracy, is having a well-informed citizenry, and that they're civically engaged. And so I think at the curriculum level, we need to do a better job in getting them civically engaged, whether it be a mandatory political science course, or it be, having them volunteer with a campaign, obtaining credit, whatever we want to discuss, but we need to come to the table and figure out a way to do that. And so when I brought up this issue on the Maine State Board of Education, the first thing that they said was, let's pass the buck. Let's figure out a way to give this to somebody else. We don't handle that issue. They suggested the Secretary of State. So I talked with the Secretary of State, and he said that they try to reach out to the Department of Education several times over the years, and that connection really never came about. So the kind of communication kind of frayed. So what we really need to do on the Maine State Board of Education is understand that we have to apply 21st century thinking to 21st century problems. We can't apply an old strategy to a new scenario. And maybe that's because there are more seasoned individuals on the board, and that's great that we have experience, but there's a time and place for positive change and for young people to come up and be able to contribute in a positive way.
Did you feel that they may have heard you but never listened?
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. I can talk the talk, but then it goes in one ear, not the other. And that's what happened.
And they were politely putting up with the two of you?
I wouldn't
Not
say
even
that.
politely.
Not even politely. I've gotten into several intense communication, I would say, with the chair of the board, because they didn't like when I brought up issues. That was a no-no for some reason, even though that's why we were brought on board. And so during the meetings, we were basically twiddling our thumbs because we can't vote. And so when I kind of got really upset with that, so I said, well, I'm going to bring up some issues during my board member report, which is usually designated to figure out, we're going to sing Kumbaya around the table saying what events that we attended versus talking about what's really important in our education system. So I decided to bring up some issues. And the first issue that I brought up on the board was raising the alarm when a number of educators breached ethical standards around the Cliff vote. That it was a big debate up in Augusta surrounding it. The MEA put out a bulletin, a newsletter out to the teachers, and signaled out two representatives, Representative Fisher and Representative Valentino, that they voted against granting increased retirement benefits to teachers. And they singled those two out. And then as an effect, we have a number of educators that sent threatening messages to those representatives based upon that newsletter. So I rose the alarm about it, and their viewpoint was, well, Justin, you're attacking teachers. That's a no-no. You can't attack teachers. Even though there was a select number that was doing this, I said, this is a big issue. We need to make a public statement saying we're going to distance ourselves from that behavior, but we understand why they're upset. but they're not going to even do that. That's what was really disconcerting to me, is they're not willing to take on that leadership that's designated in the mission statement of the Maine State Board of Education. It says to provide educational leadership. Where's the educational leadership taking place when they're going to take the back seat to the issues that plague our education system?
But when was the last time they even read the mission statement?
That's a good question. I don't think they ever read the
They
mission
probably
statement.
never did.
They did improve the mission statement this past year, but I mean, basically, there's this new piece of legislation that's being proposed that would dissolve the Maine State Board of Education. And when I first read it, I was really excited, because I really think that the duties and responsibilities of what they're currently doing on the state level with the Board of Education could be easily disbanded into the Department of Education, because basically what they do is they reform teacher certification, they approve teacher certification, they improve language in school construction, they approve school construction projects. Yes. Basically, that's the bread and butter. Everything else kind of dissolves. So that could be easily done in the department and spread out. So I definitely support something to either change their responsibilities to where they have increased responsibility over educational policy, or they disband it into the department, because there's no reason to keep this board afloat when they're not going to solve the issues at hand, or at least provide leadership on advocacy-wise of pointing out to the individuals that do handle those issues to say, hey, here's this issue regarding drug prevention in our schools, here's this issue regarding civic engagement or teachers breaching ethical standards. You either solve it or we'll take it upon ourselves to solve it. But none of that's taking place, and that was really disappointing as a young person to see our political system at work and it being very not working. I would say not working.
Unfortunately, I think when you get at the state level, on any state level, you're going to find boards and commissions becoming protecting themselves from the outside. Mm-hmm. And the last thing they need is to find out what some other board and commission needs in terms of making progress wherever that progress might lead. So they tend to become cocooned, mm-hmm. and they don't talk to each other. And you found that out when you went to the Secretary of State, who
right.
One group doesn't talk to the other group, mm-hmm. and they prefer it that way.
Right. It's less work for they don't Absolutely. Have to do their jobs, and that's really sad. And coming as a community broadcast journalist, sure. going to this position, I think they won't make that mistake again of putting a broadcast journalist on the State Board of Education, especially a student. But coming from a show that I try to hold leaders accountable for their actions and inactions, I brought that same journalistic accountability to the Maine State Board of Education, and they didn't like that because they're not used to being challenged. It's just a rubber stamp.
Did you have any interest along the way in print journalism?
Well, after looking at the current print journalism climate nowadays with newspapers going out of business.
Don't go to work for the Boston Globe.
Don't go to work for the Boston Globe. Right. I see a big convergence movement. Obviously, everybody's going online. Mm-hmm. It's good to have skills across the board, whether it be print journalism, broadcast, online journalism, mm-hmm. to have a solid journalistic kind of mindset and skill set that can be applied to any medium. Sure. So if I get offered a job in print journalism and it's something that would be worthwhile to go into, sure. But I really want to be on TV informing people of what's going on in the world around us. I think that, to me, is my bread and butter. But again, journalism is journalism. So whatever medium is, I'm happy to go into it.
Well, before you get into it, you're going to be moving on to Linden State, mm-hmm. In Vermont. Right. That's in the college of your choice. And your declared major is?
Broadcast news.
Why did we not know that?
Big shocker.
Exactly. And a couple of minors?
Yes, I will double minor in both media communications and political science, because I do have a strong interest in politics. Mm-hmm. So I want to be able to morph my passion for broadcast journalism and my interest into politics into one career path. So I guess my life goal would be to be moderator of Meet the Press or to have my own show on CNN. That would be fantastic. I mean, obviously that's way down the road, mm-hmm. but it's good to have kind of an end goal in mind, sure. as you're going through life and going through the steps on this ongoing journey of self-discovery. So.
Yes. Questions I always used to love to ask when hiring somebody for a particular position. where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
And that's how I view it too, because, you know, obviously I'm not going to start off at that level. It's
No.
going to take some time
course.
building up the ladder just like anybody else. But I feel, unlike some of my other fellow peers, it's really important to have not only a goal in mind, but some of the ideas of the steps to get to that point. So that's why I'm putting myself out there. I'm trying to get, you know, that's why I'm touring the state, doing my media tour, if you will, like here at the station, to put myself out there. That's why I have my own website, justinschnett.com. I'm really trying to build my resume, which is already about 6 pages right now, and making sure that I'm crossing the T's and dotting the I's, because now's the time to put in the effort, because later on down the road, after putting all this effort, it should reap the rewards later on down the road. So that's what I'm
One would
hoping
hope.
for. Exactly.
Exactly.
So